Javonte Williams finishes at the running back 1 overall in week 13. He's up to running back 24 on the season. And Jordan, we are, or maybe players, if this continues, maybe this game is enough into the offseason of startup drafts. That more this week of the Football Guys Dynasty show. And Jordan, is he the new Cam Akers? Are we going to get to the point where he is so cooked in this offseason, it's really going to be tough for him to achieve that that promise of upside next year?
I mean, the promise is huge. I thought I was in like some sort of alternate reality this week because all anyone was ever talking about was Javonte Williams. Like I thought there was a bit going on Twitter. So yeah, I mean, to see him come in as running back 1, like to live up to that, it's one of the rare times in Dynasty that all of that hype has actually like paid off after all the weeks of like wide receiver 1. You know, we had 16 wide receiver 1 candidates last year.
It's T. Higgins this week, by the way.
Okay, it's T. Higgins. Perfect. To see Javonte Williams actually pay off was interesting and surprising given the record of some of the hype stuff. But I do think when you sort of look at it, it's interesting from a how many guys do you trust perspective at the running back position. It's not as many as you might think. So it might seem like from sort of passive looking eyes, I wasn't in this ecosphere of conversation about Javonte Williams all week. But so as I sort of look at it, I was like kind of quizzical, but as you sort of count, like there isn't a ton of guys I trust. That said, I don't entirely trust Denver not to address the position, right? I mean, they just spent $90 million on 2 wide receivers who aren't helping them. And, they have Melvin Gordon, right? They don't have a particularly explosive offense in light of where they keep spending all their resources. I don't trust that they're going to make Javonte Williams a clear-cut, like 80+ snap guy, 80+% snap share guy. So he's very interesting, and I think he's good. There's a lot of these things, but I do think it feels a little bit Cam Akers-ish. In the sense of, are we going to trust that he actually gets home outside of even injury, that he actually gets home unscathed through the offseason without additional competition? Heck, there's no saying that Melvin Gordon's not back there. And Melvin Gordon's not, like, people want to write him off.
He's not done.
A good player. He's a good player.
Yeah, I think if you're looking right now at like 212 for Melvin Gordon, you take Melvin Gordon and run, because you look very closely at age erosion, and it's like, let's look at the player, and the age is part of the equation, but not the only equation, because when guys lose it, they're done. And he's not done. Like, he does not look that way. It doesn't look like in 2022, like he's going to be seeking work and not finding it, in a Devonta Freeman or Adrian Peterson type way. Like, it doesn't seem like he's on that path, or Todd Gurley, for example. Going back to what you said, I think one thing that is very interesting is this whole thing that I thought of Sunday into Monday, which is Melvin Gordon has a couple different issues right now, and Denver Road. So what happens if they shut him down? What happens if they say, we want to see Mike Boone? He's under contract. We want to see Javonte Williams. He's under contract. Melvin Gordon, we don't know if he's going to be a part of our plans, if he's going to fit with a certain price point next season. So they might. So if we get this window right here, Javonte Williams could be a league winner, right? I mean, he's a low-hanging fruit because it's not from the waiver wire. It's not Tim Hightower. It's not Damian Williams, anyone like that. But, I mean, he was drafted in the mid-first round, in rookie drafts. But he could absolutely fit that equation of like, oh, he got a month stretch and he was running back 1 or 2 or 3, in that stretch. And he won people titles. If you had him, it was relatively binary. You got to title games and you probably did well. I think doing so keep that in mind. If we see Melvin Gordon go to IR, or he's got a couple things, he's not going to be back for at least a couple weeks, and they just shut him down. I think that is a non-zero possibility here. And then the other thing was stack up the position. I've already started pushing my rankings and valuations towards 2022, because once you get to the play, come on, you're doing waiver wire, trade deadlines are likely closed. You should be looking that way anyway with your dynasty trading. It gets interesting in a hurry. And frankly, beyond Jonathan Taylor, right? You've got some semblance of a question with everybody. I mean, Taylor, we don't really have much of questions. He kind of fits the bulletproof profile on all fronts. But I mean, Javonte Williams, he came out pretty well for me because he has a chance. He's running back 24 in points per game right now. And if he gets any sort of clarity from now till the rest of the season, if that's one more clarified start, he could be top 24 on that season-ending sticking point. And that's a really nice feather in your cap for a 21-year-old rookie.
Totally. The universe of guys that I feel good about going into next year, like it's Taylor. I think it's a break. It's Swift. It's Harris, and they're both underperforming expectation, which again, this is a weird spot to be in where that's 2 and 3. McCaffrey's there. I can't in good faith put Barkley there. I mean, I was looking again at the Barkley stuff today, and it's horrifying. He's been, that's a story for another show. We'll just put a pin in that and put that as the title of a different show. I got to pace ourselves. So yeah, I mean, I can't attack too many dynasty, golden rules or accepted truths in one show. So no, but I do think like once you get past Taylor, like there's questions about them all, and then it becomes very much a what type of bet you want to make, and ultimately like I don't think like we can get to a spot where it's May or August, and you could say like, all right, like there's 14 guys. We could be like, all right, who's your running back like 6 through 20? And if you put them in a blender and they came out in any sort of way, you could be like, all right, that's justifiable. Like I totally see the rationale for that. That's really how I think this is going to feel, which is going to create an immense amount of opportunity to just trade between these profiles, like across leagues, like because I think there can be a wide split, and it's going to be really interesting early in the offseason, kind of like you were saying, because people sort of reorder their process, and it takes some time for I think some of that analysis to set in of sort of the global analysis. If you can sort of get a jump start on that and then hit at the dawn of trading and can make some of those moves and be out in front of the market, I do think it's valuable time right now. And you're spending one less day a week or however much time you're not trading now. I think spending some of that time thinking about what the stuff you will do in the offseason, whether it's how the rankings might look or how some of the efficiencies are going to stack up and stuff, like what type of bets you want to make, start prepping those now, because I think it makes a lot of sense. You'll be able to sort of hit before people, some of the dynasty common wisdom sets in the offseason.
Yeah, and when I was putting it together, it was a number of times where I'm like, well, this seems like a special. This seems pretty unique or not super common. Guys like Cam Akers coming back from a lost season, J.K. Dobbins coming back from a lost season, Travis Etienne missing his rookie year as a round one guy. These are not super common, early on. They usually play part of a season, so the didn't even get a sample size of anything. And those are guys that have meaningful pedigree of recent classes to kind of mix in. And you have the older guys, once you get to 20, 26, 27, the decline is real, and it's going to be a very specified marketplace. But you know what? That's where we found he might have been 24 at the time, but what was it? A couple of off seasons ago with Leonard Fournette was kind of in that bucket of round 4, round 5, of startup drafts. And I'm sure we're going to get a similar sort of valuation, or maybe even cheaper, on guys like Ezekiel Elliott this coming off season, or Eckler's 27, Fournette's 27, Kamara's 27. So it's a really interesting bucket of like, oh yeah, I don't want a 27 running back because there's no insulation there. Let me take, and now I'm going to insert young player that really shouldn't have a lot of insulation either, if that's Dobbins or Akers or Etienne, or like, so if you consider those guys, more insulated because they haven't shown, 1/5 of what those other guys have shown. They have basically 0 high-end data points, and those other guys have a decent amount, but yet obviously they're only getting older, and they're basically, I'm buying for me. It's like, I'm buying this tennis bracelet for me, not you. It's all for show. It's all just because I wanted it. I bought myself the Christmas present. You guys weren't going to get it right. I'm just buy what I want in December. That's how it works. So, and I'll tell you, I'm pretty excited. I mean, we'll go back to Javonte Williams, but I'm really excited about Josh Jacobs the rest of the season. No Kenyon Drake, and we saw him unleashed. With his PPR upside there, and I don't think Peyton Barber is going to be the guy to take it away. You're on mute, Jordan. Still on mute.
Sorry,
You look great.
sorry.
You look great doing it, though. Sorry.
Yeah, the stills of me talking are just incredible. No, I was doing some looking at Jacobs this week. There's a very real chance that he finishes top 5, top 6 in terms of season long receptions at the running back position.
Everyone should keep hating on him. Yeah.
And like he has 39 right now through 10 games. He missed games with with injuries. And as you look at it, like Cordero Patterson's ahead of him, and I think he's actually catchable considering he's not running that many routes right now. He's doing a lot of the running back centric stuff. And then guys in front of him like McKissick, who's hurt. So I do think there's actually room for Jacobs to grow in both his own work share in the passing game and at the position. Like we could look back and he's wide receiver 5 or 6 in terms of receptions on the season and be like, where did that come from? Almost in a Josh Jacobs-esque way. And it's definitely one of those things where like everyone wanted to talk him down, and it's wild because now he's in a spot where you look at Jacobs and you're like, oh, all right, like 15 points per game. Like, how did he do it? It was the antithesis of what he's done throughout his career. He's basically a less than 50 rushing yards per game guy, but he's a 3.9 receptions per game guy, right? Which is just wild when you think of what the narrative was to start his career. So he has already set his career mark. We haven't even reached the fantasy playoffs yet, and he's only played 10 games, and he has set his career high in receptions. That is I think a market improvement based off of what the entire offseason was saying about him.
Yeah, I love what Derek said in the chat. He said, besides injury away running backs, as a throw-in, I think I'll be passing on trading for any running backs. And I think that's a pretty sound strategy in off seasons or just in Dynasty in general. Can I get guys as a throw-in piece? Because you know what? You never know when guys like that are going to get dropped. I mean, it sounds nutty, but if you just monitor your leagues, I mean, guys like Samaje Perine during this regular season, or Carlos Hyde, or you get guys during bye weeks and trying to fill holes, and all of a sudden they drop a running back because they go, injury away, whatever. And the offseason works the same way. We turn and burn and just try to optimize those settings for 8 months to be in position for the preseason and early season to matter. But yeah, you draft someone in rookie drafts, and but the actual like, oh, let me trade for XYZ. You need to be highly selective in how you do that for sure. Do want to remind you, they're sponsored this week by Props Fantasy. They have a tournament of champions. You want to make sure you check that out. Dave Klug from Footballguys is in that tournament, and it's easy to join, which is the main part here. You got existing teams, Sleeper, Yahoo. They're adding more platforms as we go, but you create a challenge and you play with your existing lineups. You can challenge your leagues. You can challenge those from other leagues. Just import those from the qualified platforms and get ready to crown yourself undisputed champion. So waiting for, you can sign up over there, propsfeed.com/guys, and cash in. Registration gives you a chance to win one of those signed Rodgers helmets. And the more challenges you enter, the more chances you have to win. And also, you mentioned before about the new Footballguys swag shop. So they've got a bunch of stuff like, dad sweatshirts and shirts and hats and all that stuff. I believe the link is it shop.footballguys.com?
Yep, shop.footballguys.com.
Yeah,
and it's there's some good stuff
Christmas
here. I actually
presents.
I have some shirts coming. They've got a nice Sorry Joe shirt, which I will be sporting on a future, hopefully next week.
See it soon, yes.
Yeah, hopefully next week. But yeah, some good stuff there at shop.footballguys.com. I pitched hard for the shirt. So I'll show it here. I'll even share the screen here. You can see it.
Excellent. Look at this.
Hard for this shirt.
Yes.
So this has come up big. So excited for that. And I will be wearing it on a future Football Guy show. So join us in that, and lots of good stuff here. Some other, they got a whole bunch of colors, which is even great. I might go in a variety of them. I might even buy like several of them and wear them on the staff trip.
Whatever your outfit.
Yeah. Just bring like 4 or 5 of them with us to the staff retreat in Vegas. It'll be good. So, yeah. So go ahead, check that out.
Seeing who keeps track of your colors.
Right.
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah. So final thoughts on Javonte Williams. And I think, I thought you were going to say this is outlandish, outrageous, preposterous. It's the Jackie Childs. I thought you were going to give that that approach. You're like, what has this guy done? Like, I thought you were going to give me one of those. But really the landscape, I started at it, and Javonte Williams for me came out pretty high, for the 22 running backs, because you say 3 down potential. He looks the part. I'm going to say less than 50% chance that we get Melvin Gordon back, but stranger things. They are bringing everybody and their mother back in Denver. Probably bring Teddy Bridgewater and Drew Lock back as well. So that's going to obviously hurt the potential rising tide. But yeah, I mean, you go through Najee Harris is already going to be 24 next year. That's a negative. You also got question marks for, again, he has a lot of positives, so I don't want to discount that. But, Saquon Barkley, you outlined a few things there. There's a faction that doesn't like Joshua Jacobs. Joe Mixon is going to be 26. Antonio Gibson hasn't quite put it together yet. Ezekiel Elliott's 27. Dobbins coming off an injury. Etienne, same thing. Nick Chubb's 26. Kamara's 27. Fournette's 27. Eckler's 27. So the point is, there's guys with pedigree that haven't done enough. Edward Solaire, for example. Dalvin Cook is going to be older. It's a litany. That's the guys. Between what running back, exactly, running back 5 and 20. We're almost out to like 20, and that's the pocket.
Montgomery, right? Just keep Miles Sanders.
It seems like you almost in a startup draft you pass on all that. you pass on a lot of it, or you say who's going round 4 or 5.
I'll just take the last ones. Yeah. Right. I'll just take Right. There's going to be.
Who's got the stink? I can't wait in January to see who's got the stink. It's a song. Who's got the stink?
I'm absolutely on board with that. I think it's going to be highly advantageous this year. Is just pass on it early, right? Let
Zeke might be going running back 18.
Yeah.
Zeke might be running back 18. And then you chase it with Fournette, running back 21.
Right. Just double down. I'm just going to go and
trading back and get those 2 running backs.
It might even set up a situation where it's actually set up a situation this year, because it happened at receiver, where this year was actually a trade up, right? So I could trade from, I could give a 2nd and a 3rd, move up to the 1st and go back to the 7th and not be in any worse of a position, right?
That's the running back is similar. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. That's probably what I'm going to find myself doing. And then, and double, high end assets that way. And then, I don't want to, I'll let everyone else take the bet there. And I don't think I could.
But what's going to be your
trading up?
What's going to be your reaction in a January startup? If we put Jordan into this world, and he sees Javonte Williams go in the 2nd round. What's going to be your reaction when you see that pick?
How much later is J.S. Jacobs going? I think that'll be what I'll be watching for, because
at least a couple rounds, if not more.
Yeah, right. I mean, and that's I don't. I sort of look at these guys in like levels of commitment type of thing, and you sort of look at Jacobs, and he's going to be in a multi-year window for sure.
Because that'll be year 4. Next year will be year 4, and then you figure the 5th year option. So right. 2 more years, kind of locked into his same situation.
Yeah,
and 2 years is good. I mean, 2 years is about as much as any running back that's not a drafted rookie will have.
Yeah,
and frankly, a lot of drafted rookies don't have that to start because they're not going to be the assumed starter.
Right.
Like Najee Harris. Najee Harris actually has 4, I guess, because he's only burned 1. So.
Yeah. Do you just a process question for you? Like at this point, because there's so many of these other questions, we can be like, hey, Najee Harris, he's going to be a 24-year-old second, like he's old, right? But at the same time, like we kind of know what the next. We have an idea of where he's going. Where on some of these guys, like with Gurley, for example, like we can use Gurley as a prior on some of these guys, like whether it's Elliott or whether it's any of these older guys. I mean, it could be I think Barkley's probably not that case, but some of these older guys that are
they're not on a 3 to 4 year window. They're more like on a 2-ish year window,
or it could be even less. And all of a sudden, you sort of say, all right, like. Yes, Najee Harris is older than maybe I would ideally put it, but how much? Like I think as a dynasty community in general, right, and dynasty analysts, and I think dynasty GMs, I think we place too much emphasis on the age 24, the age the 28 and 29-year-old seasons of a 24-year-old, because there's so much that happens between now and then that's uncertain. That the more and more I play this, the more and more I care about maybe a 2 or 3 year window, just because there's so much that's out of our control at those are sort of stretching the wide ranges of outcomes of players and knowing what's on those ranges. Like, we can have an idea of sort of what's in there, but there's a massive disparity of what could happen, that I've become much more of late weighing towards the near term, the 2 to 3, the 12,
Same thing for me. Yeah.
24 to 36 month window. So I don't care that Najee Harris, like I used to care about that stuff. I don't care as much anymore about how old Najee Harris is coming in, because he's coming into a big workload.
Yeah, I mean, usually the 21-year-olds go earlier in a draft,
That's
in a
true.
given. Now, the fact that he went round one, just, I'm not going to say despite being 23, but
Right.
being 23, that supersedes it. But the general, like if we were talking prospects, I mean, generally 21, 22-year-olds go ahead of 23, 24-year-olds. Well, part of that is they're underclassmen versus not, and then why do you linger around 4, 5, 6 years in college? So some of those things, but yeah, like the couple year window, because it really hit home this past week or so. I start running players and like, okay, so how is it looking ahead with some of these some of this fear data for next year? And I think back to how much things have changed from when I did this a year ago. So the fact that you see that much change means, and this whole, like, especially at wide receiver, everyone wants to discount he's 29. He's 29, alert, yell it from the rooftops. He's 29, everybody. But they would rather take a 24-year-old that you still don't really have concrete proof that they're good. Like,
Right.
let's say this is the Cortland Sutton principle. Like we'd rather take a wide receiver that their peak year is like wide receiver 26, but yet they're young, instead of the guy that's been, wide receiver 1 for like 4 straight years, but they're 29. I'm yelling it again. They're 29. Oh my God, he's 29. Yeah, he probably knows how to run her out by now.
Right.
So
Keenan Allen.
I just like wide receiver is the epitome of this approach of like, hey, why are we worrying about 2024? Can we slow our roll about this? Like, so you first want good players. You'd rather have them younger than older, but yeah, at running back, one strong year. I mean, for those that were maybe fading Austin Eckler last year because he, was 25 or 26 or whatever, I don't know. You're getting a high end running back one season. That seems pretty valuable. So some of these guys, I get the market value aspect, and I'm, again, never going to ignore that stuff. But I think there is an overcooked aspect of just trying to build your team for others. We've talked about it before. I don't know why we're getting an off-season mode, Jordan, but we got tons of trades to discuss about teams contending and pretending. So let's go for it. All right. First trade here. A contending team gets Chris Godwin. A non-contending team gets Travis Etienne and a 23 first projected early.
Wow. So a contending team gets Godwin. The other side gets Etienne and a first.
Yeah. I don't know if that's one quarterback or super flex. Don't ask.
Wow, that's still pretty good. And there's a lot of uncertainty with Godwin.
I think that's a win-win. I mean, I'll just say that. Like, I think Godwin is a proven entity. He's posted another strong season, which is a double dip here. But first round running back, 23 first. I would argue that for the team direction, that rebuilding side, that's a really nice haul. First round running back. Banking a projected early first in the future, even if it's not random or whatever, but just that's a really nice haul. I'm not going to say that the contending team can't be happy with their return as well, but I mean, I think for the team directions, the Etienne side's better.
Flags fly forever. So if you win a championship, you care less. You don't have to apologize for it. So
if Antonio Brown is back week 16 and balling, and Godwin gets 10 targets between 16 and 17, I don't know if you're going to be that happy of a camper.
Right.
And then he gets some free agent contract to go to Houston or whatever.
Right.
Just projecting. I mean,
well, he'll be a rich man's Corey Davis, I think, in terms of what his market would look like. So I think he's not going to do worse than that. I wouldn't think so, unless there's some injury out there we don't know about. But even Kenny Galladay got a huge deal in free agency. And
a reminder to folks that Chris Godwin can do a lot more than he's currently doing. He's kind of taking over the Antonio Brown role of the offense. Ton of short stuff. He can be a traditional go down the sideline, make a monster. Like, he can do all that kind of stuff. It's just that they're not asking him to do that in this iteration of Tampa Bay in recent weeks. All right, next one. 14-team Superflex. A 22 second that's on the early side for Zach Wilson. How the mighty.
You said it's 20. Sorry, you had me at the second for Wilson, and you tripped me out.
That's what it is in a 14-teamer. So it's like 16, 17, 18 overall, something like that for Zach Wilson.
That's
who
incredible.
Probably went top 5 or 6. 6 months ago.
Yeah, you got to take Wilson.
Yeah.
You have to take Wilson.
Right.
You do that.
What's your assessment? What's your assessment of Zach Wilson? Obviously, it's part of a rookie season, and usually rookie quarterbacks don't look great. So he qualifies.
Yeah, I mean, this is why you take the last of them, right? So I mean, hopefully with
you get him on the rebound like this, right?
Perfect. Like this is the right bet. I'll say this: the lack of hit early on doesn't necessarily it doesn't drop your hit rate that much. You really need a year 2 or year 3 hit, so you really need an uptick next year. And one thing that I actually looked at that I thought would have some predictiveness that didn't was like yards per attempt. And that stuff was really fluky in terms of what you did rookie year to what that actually translated into later on. So I think there's a lot of uncertainty there, and a lot of things can change at quarterback, and we see the biggest jump from year 1 to year 2. So I'm not necessarily willing to write him off. I think this is a good process, right? This is a type of bet you're giving a non-core asset for a guy that can make a difference to you in the format, right? That's a really good low cost, what I think is a decent upside bet.
Especially if you're light at quarterback in a 14-teamer and you're
Absolutely.
like, hey, I'm not contending right now, but let me get a guy in the building that could be a core player for me going forward, because be open to the possibilities. I mean, we've had a ton of quarterbacks that start off pretty darn slow. And like you said, that progression year 2, I think the pressure is really year 3, that's when the team may move on. They may supplement with a backup or a veteran that they could actually turn to if they're not liking how things are going. That's when they could dip back in and draft somebody else in year 3, year 4, those type of windows. So, but you get a little bit of leeway, and I'm sure he'll get his long into 2022.
Yeah.
All right. We got
this is the dynasty version of Gardner Minshew, right? So Philly went out and they addressed the position with Gardner Minshew, with a guy that maybe doesn't have a huge ceiling, but he can quote play well enough. Like, hey, maybe this could be if Jalen Hurts falls on his face, like we can take a shot at sort of developing him and just see what happens, right, at a very low cost. This is exactly what you're doing in Dynasty with Zach Wilson, right? This is a great. The more I talk about this, I think it's a great trade.
It was fun. It was fun seeing Gardner Minshew this week. I'll just say that.
He's fun, man.
I knew there would be a sense of timing, rhythm, and competency to the passing game of the Eagles that we haven't seen. That's not a dig on Jalen Hurts. That's
Mercury,
just an
like
observational
flair
fact
to it too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, just him walking in with his outfits. I mean, that's all we need is on the pregame, knowing guess what? He hasn't been there for 3 months. Why? He hasn't started a game. So there's not. It would seem like a pretty random image to have Gardner Minshew walking into the stadium on all the preview shows. It's like, why are they showing him again? He's the third quarterback. All right. So I thought this was pretty interesting, and I want to just rapid fire. There's 3 or 4 trades. So a team and two tight end and 2 quarterback. They did a team teardown, the categorical fire sale, Jordan. So I want you to grade A through F. Give each one of these a grade through the prism of fire sailing your team. I always kind of like to look at all the things they traded away and be like, dude, you weren't very far away. Why'd you fire sale it? But that's a discussion for a different day. Here we go. So 2 tight end, 2 quarterback. They traded Russell Wilson and Elijah Mitchell for 3 first, a 24th, and then 2 seconds next year.
Can you say that again? 3 firsts?
No, 2 firsts, 23 and 24. So a first in each of those years, and then 2 seconds next year in 2022.
It's a disaster.
So F.
Next.
F. Ryan Tannehill and Aaron Jones for a first in 22, 23, and 24.
How'd you get a better deal for that than you did Russell Wilson?
Because Russell Wilson has an upset tummy and he's got a hurt finger. That's why.
I wish I could give more picks for Russell Wilson right now. I wish my trade were open.
This one will get a higher grade. Yeah.
I like if you're gonna do that, this is the way to do it, right? That's a good rebuild. I don't like sending quarterbacks for non-core assets, but right. I think there's enough in this that you're getting back that you can.
Well, you're also getting a first next year. It's not starting in 23. That's another part that we don't like about the other one. And Aaron Jones is 27. So if you are a 27-year-old running back with a guy that can play right on his heels, so Yeah, that's
he's
not
not
a
going to be
great
on your next
fit.
contending team the way you're doing it. Again, I probably wouldn't do this the way he's doing
Yeah,
it.
the
but
arrival date. The other thing is the way they're doing this is the arrival date is going to be 23, maybe even 24, which we really don't like extending windows like that. I mean, you're just donating.
Right.
I mean, you might as well go buy lottery tickets.
Right.
You might as the same amount. You might as well buy some scratchers. All right, here we go. Kyler Murray. So look at all of the players they had.
Why are you giving up Russell Wilson, Tannehill, and Kyler Murray, and we're rebuilding? You should be contending next year with those quarterbacks.
No, fire. Don't team. Wait for the next one. After this one. All right, so Kyler Murray for Trey Lance. He's proven. A 22 first, which is projected to be 101. A 23 first projected early.
All right, so the 2022 first is going to be 101, and man, I still don't love it. I mean, all right, so
Kenny Pickett, you get Trey Lance, Kenny Pickett, you're trading in.
I mean, okay, so you're lucky to get a tier. Like your odds are that you're not going to hit that tier, right? Your odds.
You're going to get another Kyler. You're going to get. You have Trey Lance. You're going to get another Kyler Murray. Plus, in 23, you're going to get a third Kyler Murray. This is going to be awesome. Okay, so you don't like that one.
Once elite quarterbacks, like, and I think you and I would differ on Kyler a bit. I'd like to see him stay healthy for a game.
I just break ties away from him. That's it.
Right. But I think this is a classic example of he's so far away from Trey Lance that it's not even you need multiple firsts to even enter a conversation. Listen,
Trey Lance cannot push Jimmy Garoppolo out of the way.
Yes.
That's where we sit with Trey Lance. He is so far away from being ready to play.
Do you trust at all Shanahan's ability to develop anybody? Because I don't.
Zero.
I don't. I don't trust I don't trust a word he's going to say, nor do I trust his ability to develop anybody.
Negative. My Trey Sermon hope is that Shanahan's not around. That's my Trey Sermon hope. Or that he's so much in the doghouse they trade him for a conditional fifth this offseason. That's what I hope. Which may very well happen. Yeah, they're like, well, we view him not as good as Elijah Moore. So let's Elijah Mitchell. All right, so this last one. So again, 2 tight end, George Kittle for 23 first and a 24 first, and Jordan just fell asleep or is disgusted by putting his head down.
I passed out.
This might be the worst. This might be the worst one, right?
So let me ask you this. Okay, so without knowing anything else, right? So just with these guys, I didn't write all these down, but let me, off the top of my head, I've got at least 3 top 15 assets in the format,
right? Yeah, at least 3.
You should contend next year,
and 2 others that are probably top 50-ish. Yeah,
right. You should contend next year.
Yeah.
And
well, just to let you know, they have 5. They have a couple firsts next year. They have 5 firsts in 23 and 5 firsts in 24.
That's after these deals?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, yeah. I mean,
well, you know what? They could trade those picks back for maybe some players like Russell Wilson or cut.
You're right. You could adjust. Yeah, you could definitely adjust 2 core quarterbacks with that. And
they have Trey Lance. They're good. They have Trey Lance.
Man, yeah,
they're fine.
No, I don't like doing this. It's not the way I like to do it. I mean, maybe in a past iteration of Jordan would do this.
This wasn't trading Tom Brady because you don't think you're going to contend in a 18-month window. This is different.
You have Kyler Murray in his prime.
Russell Wilson is in his prime.
Right. And I know Russ is hurt. And
if you want to trade Tannehill, I'm more okay with that.
Yes.
Like you said,
Aaron Jones. That's fine.
I'm most okay with the Tannehill Jones one.
That's actually a good deal. And honestly, if you did that deal around Kyler
in this format, you probably
Kittle,
don't get a first for Aaron Jones, right?
Probably not.
Probably not with the way things are trending. So then you're getting at least 2 firsts for Tannehill.
Right.
So which I think is fair.
Right.
That's fair. With how this season has gone, and now he's on a whole different kind of trajectory. He's looking a lot more like he had like a little 1.5 year run. And now things look a lot different.
That deal. So I actually have a team that was like this, where I could have went and I could have totally thrown it in and sort of went out to 2023, 2024 and tried to rebuild, or I could try and do it in the short term. I did it in the short term, and now I'm going I have a buy, right? In a safe leagues, I'm like top 50 in the format, right? Like I turned it around quick because instead of kicking all the assets out, I said, let's kick it. Let's just kickstart this. Just do it now.
And 2 quarterback and 2 tight end. If you have 2 quality quarterbacks like Murray and Wilson, and then you have George Kittle, you're automatically quasi-competitive on that alone.
Absolutely. And so you can use those, but you got the deal that you needed to get to rejuvenate your team. You got 3 firsts for Tannehill and Aaron Jones. Like, that's the deal.
Just then, you know what? That's the one.
Right. Then you can upgrade at quarterback. Like, you have a whole variety. You can take a shot at Zach Wilson with that second, like we talked about before. Like, there's a whole bunch of other ways. Like, you can address running back, wide receiver, and tight end, like, along with those picks, and not ever use them.
Just with the 22 first, could we get 2 starters onto your team with how people might go rookie pick crazy when you get into the spring. So you can help so if you're getting one or 2 starters out of that first, and you're like middle of the pack and competitive next year, then the 23 first, you have flexibility to take the pick or trade it again. I mean, you and again, you're building around Kittle and Wilson and Kyler, and you're doing fine. You're doing absolutely fine. You grind the waiver wire, and we don't even know how the depth of roster is. But yeah, when I saw this, I was like, you start adding up the players they traded away. It's like, well, now I know why you're rebuilding. You kind of did it to yourself. And just because this didn't go well, and you're projected to be like 104 or whatever it is. I mean, and yeah, Kittle missed some time, and Russell Wilson's not playing great, and Kyler missed some time. I get it. The season didn't go well for you. Aaron Jones too, but that doesn't mean. I mean, if those guys stay healthy next year, you're what, 2 wins better? 3 wins better? Who knows?
At least.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, if Kyler Murray and Russell Wilson are healthy next year, you're 3 wins better than you are this year.
Exactly.
You're automatic. You're back. If those guys play for an entire season, and Kittle plays for 75%, and your replacement level across the board, you're probably a playoff team, right? All
right, Jordan. I'm gonna scare you with one more trade.
Is this the same team situation?
No.
Okay.
They are.
I can't take anymore.
They're done. They traded Aaron Rodgers for 2 seconds. All right, moving on. So they also had Aaron Rodgers. Sorry, they felt too deep at quarterback in a 2 quarterback league. All right, so this is a number 1 seed, and they felt like they had some injury issues, and they really need to supplement running back. It's a 12-team keeper league, so obviously view it like FFPC. I guess it would be the prism here. It's a stock format, 1 quarterback. So they had some running back issues. I frankly don't think they have running back issues now, but they couldn't wait, I guess. So they gave a 22 first, 2 23 firsts, and Kenny Galladay for Saquon Barkley.
You can have them. I wouldn't do it.
Right.
I wouldn't.
Well,
I wouldn't.
Yeah.
No, I don't.
Yeah.
Can you just can't.
I know.
He can't outproduce Devontae Booker right now. So I don't.
And now they'll be rolling out. It looks like in the playoffs they could roll out Kamara, Barkley, and Fournette as their notable running backs. But they were without Kamara obviously for a little bit, and Fournette's been balling. But you're given 3 firsts. I know, and one thing we can reference this. I mean, in FFPC, firsts don't quite have the same level of juice just because of the sharp cuts, and they might turn into roster cloggers. Especially depending on the position you draft. So I get that there's that element of like, oh, well, these firsts are kind of like play money. I understand that argument, especially with 12-player keeper and not 14, 16, 18, whatever. I get that. But 3 firsts for a player that we don't even know closing down the stretch of the season that he's going to be a high impact guy. If he averages 14 points per game for the rest of the season, and he was like your flex and really didn't matter much at all, and now you're accelerating to next year, 3 firsts is a lot. It's a lot. I mean, not for Javonte Williams, but it's a lot for Saquon Barkley.
It is.
So
it's yeah. I that's a business I don't want any part of.
Yep. I do want to remind folks, we don't mention it much, but subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. We're going to be splitting channels, coming up with every show. But the Audible feed, it's been one for more than a decade, and we've got DFS shows, we've got everything that you need. They've been expanding a lot of the video content, audio content over the last 12 to 24 months, and obviously you listen to the Dynasty show. But again, every single reading, even if you just give the stars, if you write a few words about what host you like, how much you enjoy the show, it's much appreciated. It really helps on all the podcasting platforms. All right, so I had a couple of questions here to close out on the quotes from the Football Guys Dynasty Forum. Didn't have much, but I had this one that I thought was interesting. Think about the simple math of a 14-team Superflex. There's only 32 teams in the league, so if quarterbacks are distributed evenly, only 4 teams even have 3 starting quarterbacks at any point in time, and the other teams would just have 2. Can you talk about the added squeeze when you go beyond 12 teams at quarterback, when you go to 2 quarterback, like we have a team together in that type of format, that it's a whole different animal than a 12-team, 10-team super flex type of environment where you have to have the option to play a quarterback, but just that positional scarcity, the natural effects there.
Yeah, it becomes much more difficult to fill out that super flex spot with a quarterback if you don't, if you have injuries, if you have those sorts of things. So I think the depth matters too. So if you're playing, if it's 14 team and you're playing, 20 roster spots, that's a different animal than if you're playing 14 and it's 35, right? The different types of investments that you're making at the position, I think, are different then. At the deeper perspectives, like taking those shots on depressed versions of Gardner Minshew, for example, make a lot of sense. Mitchell Trubisky, right? All of those guys become very, very important. I do think in a shorter in a shorter roster situation where maybe it's 14 teams, it's 20-man rosters, right? Maybe you're not rostering, Mike White was probably available in spots, right, in your offseason, right? In those sorts of formats. That becomes very much in that format, it's tough to roster a ton of backups. So what I would typically do is, understand that my fab budget is probably going to be spent in a significant chunk on a backup quarterback that I think is going to make a difference for me, right? That's kind of how I would play it, or consistently, backfilling with the roster. I think a lot of it matters on the size of your roster, how you play that strategy. We have a 40-man where, anyone that has a pulse at quarterback, we're kind of in on, right? I think we even got Kellen Mond. We don't really like Kellen Mond, but we need, anyone that's got a pulse is really valuable. And so that's the situation there. So we got Sean Mannion, right? We've got a lot of quarterbacks there.
Geno Smith was a major addition for us. Nice shot in the arm. Yeah. One of the rare backups that was actually out there at a point in time. But yeah, that's what kind of makes that format fun. It'll bring in players that you won't think about any other time.
Totally do those too, by the way, because they help you in other in other leagues, right? So when you're trying to figure out a streaming situation in your 22-man roster, right, that you sort of have that muscle memory of, hey, I'm playing 40-man. Like, I know all these guys. I understand all these guys. I know who all these guys are. Just playing in that. Same thing with tight ends for us. That's 2 quarterback, 2 tight ends. There's guys in there that in most leagues, no one's rostering. You look in your all leagues thing in MFL, and it says, not rostered, not rostered, not rostered. And the only one that this backup,
the deep guy, and all you're looking for is in the deep
deeper.
2 tight end leagues. And you're like, yeah, of course, that's the one that they're already rostered. Yeah, thanks. That's all I was looking for. I was looking for in my fantasy league. Thanks a lot. All right. Will there be a super flex or 2 quarterback startup draft in January where Patrick Mahomes does not go QB1?
I'm sure there will be.
And it'll be Justin Herbert, right?
It's not going to be anyone that I'm not taking anyone over.
No. But I do think if this personal swoon of Mahomes continues, and again, that's a mid QB1. If it continues, I bet someone's going to get cutesy and do it. I bet they're going to do it.
Yeah, and I'd be interested to hear the pitch. If you're listening to other podcasts and you hear that, let me know, because I'd love to hear the case for it and who's making it and what the case they're making is. You're not going to hear it from me. I won't. It's Mahomes, because this is why. Right? This, in a bad case scenario, this is what you get, which is a top 6 quarterback, right? And it's not going well situation, and you're still scared and the other team, you put him out there and they're scared to death that he's going to drop a 50 burger on you in week 15, right? That's the worst case scenario. That's why you.
Well, I still think we haven't seen him without Hill or Kelsey, and they're trying to figure things out weapon-wise, and that might be a new scenario where, I don't know, it's QB9. But I just mean
Mm-hmm.
there is worse than what he currently, has and is doing.
Totally.
Would be my only point. I'm not. He's still QB1. Like I'm not going anywhere venturing there, but he has two elite weapons for their position. And if one of them were to alter their impact, I mean, they're still searching very much for everything else on their offense in terms of what they ideally want to have.
No, I agree with that. But do you think we're in a situation at some point, like, I think on the flip side of that, there's a very real chance that this is the worst that their third receiving option looks like for the next while.
You say that. I mean, they
were in
brought in
Juju.
Watkins, they drafted McCole Hardman. I'm just saying you would think that's an attractive spot, but Juju said no. We don't know what other guys have said no for whatever reason, but just, I mean, yes, you would think they would be able to have their pick of a nice subset of potential free agent options. It'd be nice if they got a draft pick right every now and then, but until that happens, it hasn't. So let's not assume. Clyde Edwards-Helaire could have been Jonathan Taylor, and they could be wrecking things. So let's not.
Could you imagine the greatest show on turf that would be the Kansas City Chiefs with Jonathan Taylor and DK Metcalf instead of Clyde Edwards-Helaire?
I cannot imagine. No, I cannot. They literally would make the NFL not a competitive sport. No, they would be the first team ever to score average 45 points a game. Right. The only time you think they don't punt much now, you don't think they're Kansas City punter now. I mean, just imagine that guy would be the best gig in the world. He wouldn't even practice anymore. He'd just get fat and happy on hoagies. He'd just be like, I don't know. I haven't run 40 yards ever this season. I just punt it straight out of bounds, 25 yards. I don't even care because I never do it. All right, last one here. Was the Patriots-Bills game fun or painful to watch?
Oh boy. Well, I rode my bike during it, so it was painful.
All 3 hours? You watch it live?
I should have, because
actually it was a swift game, right? I mean, because it was all that running. It was like a high school running clock.
Minutes. Yeah,
like a high school running clock.
Yeah. So that aspect of it was painful. I mean, I went out there. We went to a family event out there. I'm from basically 2.5 hours east, and it had been windy up here all weekend, and I was out that way, not right in Orchard Park, but maybe 40 miles or so from there, and the wind off the lake was just, I mean, it was blowing us over on Saturday. It didn't stop all weekend, and I was like looking at the video, and I was like, oh, and it was only worse there, and I was like, man. So I couldn't imagine throwing a ball around on Saturday when I was up there. So yeah, it was tough. I don't know how much I take from it. I will say this: if we were talking about league winners a couple weeks ago. How about Ramondre Stevenson if Damian Harris is going to be out with a hamstring injury? Because best grade, PFF's best graded running back. I saw them post today.
Bye week to get healthy. We'll see, but the potential is to be on the other side. The hamstring is not really doing that great, and we got this guy, right here that. It's almost like the Melvin Gordon principle of like, that hip isn't really feeling too good.
Yeah. And they get the Bills in the playoffs too, right? Don't they have
it did feel like a game that, like, man, that missed field goal. Like, I was watching it and it's just like, man, you missed that kick and it went straight hook sideways there. And that really was a big deal because then obviously, the next drive they need a touchdown, not a field goal. But yeah, all that stuff. It felt like the Patriots were good to go to play. I mean, it kind of exposed the Bills not having a run game, right? I mean, because that was the perfect game that if you can just lead on your run game like the Patriots did, you take some variables out of the equation, and that's really not the Bills' MO, to put it lightly. So that's one thing.
It's not. But if Dawson Knox could have caught, Knox couldn't have caught two
overt drops, right?
Yeah,
at least two.
It's just brutal.
Yeah, I gotcha.
He couldn't have caught a cold in an infant room at a daycare facility. I don't know what was going on with that. But being
the knob toucher, for all the doors at a daycare facility.
I mean, it was brutal. But yeah, so
you better get the jump machine.
just peppering him at the wind. But yeah, what I was curious was I would have loved to have seen them just be like, all right, we're going to do a max protect. I don't know if you saw this at the end of the Raiders game. Derek Carr just basically just heaved a ball down the field, essentially trying to draw a PI, right, to put him in field goal range, which is essentially what he did. I think it was to Zay Jones. And I'm surprised that wasn't a tactic actually employed, because you get the ball up there,
With
it's going to knuckle around.
in the jet stream,
You just, I'm not
the
trying to
DB's going to freak out
this.
no matter what. Yeah.
Right. And and then you're basically trying to draw a PI on them, knowing it's going to be really difficult to complete it, but it's also going to be very difficult to intercept. And even if it is intercepted, it's a punt practically. You're sort of doing that game. Basically max protect a fly route and try and draw a PI. I thought that was effective offense that probably wasn't used. I think in that way they were a little bit too afraid to throw deep, because I wouldn't have been necessarily worried about the outcome. I mean, and the Patriots had one big run essentially, and then they played fine.
They played not to lose, and they said we'll play with our defense, and we're not going to turn the ball over. And go ahead. Try to score a touchdown when you need it.
Right.
A touchdown. Tough stuff. All right. So in this episode, we discussed some rebuilding and contending trades. We discussed maybe how not to do a fire sale, how to do maybe just a little campfire, a little campfire, maybe a couple pieces here and there, a little bit of kindling, but not your whole house, not a whole wall, because it's going to spread and it's going to render you homeless. So we discussed that. We discussed Javonte Williams, Saquon, Barkley, some of those questions of where to rank them, how to value them amongst a very ambiguous and up and down running back position. It's going to be a fun one in 2022. I am Chad Parsons. He is Jordan McNamara. And until next time, good luck in your Dynasty leagues. Straight money.
Oh, back rimmed it.
Oh, that felt so